So, welcome to today's episode of Real Life Perspective by Filmmaker. So, today we're supposed to be doing a review on a new green screen and some muslin fabric that I got off of Amazon this week. It was a $150 package with 3 lights, not really all that fantastic. It's a 65 watt, but coupled with a couple of socket splitters from Home Depot, which is something I often use for my lighting, which basically means you put it into a normal socket that you would light something with and 2 light bulbs branch out. Another useful thing that you can get at Home Depot is actually a wall socket to light socket converter. So you can actually plug your light bulb in to, say, an extension cord or to just a normal wall socket and use that for light. And those are both very, very useful. I'm probably going to use those on those lighting kits. But also, anyways, back to that. It has 3 stands for those lights to go on. 2 white diffusion umbrellas. It also has 2 stands, a bar, so that you can hang whatever type of fabric you are using as a backdrop, be it a green screen, which is included. There are 3 screens, a 10-foot by 12-foot green screen, a 10-foot by 12-foot black muslin sheet, and a white one as well. So the different things you could do with it would be, you know, green screen, or just have a nice black backdrop here and light it from behind, or have a white thing and kind of mimic an Apple type commercial where everything looks heavenly and ingenious. But anyways, I will do a review on that once it actually arrives through the mail. It said 4 to 10 days. I ordered it before Christmas, so who knows when those 4 to 10 days actually begin. So, anyways, today we are actually going to be doing a movie review, which I know is something I haven't really done, unless you include the Hobbit one from last week, which wasn't really a movie review, just more so a review on 48 frames per second, which was fantastic, by the way, in a nutshell. But if you don't want to, it should be off to the side, or off to the side, I'm not really sure, for you to go and see my personal take on what I think 48 frames per second is now and will possibly amount to. But anyways, the movie we are going to be talking about today, which 20 years, Mr. Spielberg, 20 years. I don't know if it's 20 years exactly, but it's been a while since you've done anything extremely significant. In my personal opinion, E.T., Indiana Jones, you know, all of those, just way too long. But anyways, you guys know what it is. Lincoln, first Spielberg film that I've been really impressed with for a long while. But anyway, some of the main things, the biggest thing that stood out to me overall was the lighting. The lighting was absolutely fantastic. It was beautiful. If you want to improve your lighting skills, and this is the stage that I am at, one thing that I think you should really do is go and see this. Even if you have no understanding of lighting, it is very interesting and probably very helpful for someone who has no concept of lighting, which if you watch any of my videos, you should have seen like 5 of them that talk about 3-point lighting. But anyways, if you are doing this, go to Lincoln, watch it. It's about a 2.5 hour movie, which is a long time, and there's some slow parts here and there, so it's hard to stay awake, but that's history for you. But anyways, one thing that I do during movies is I like to see the lighting in the room, and I like to try and figure out where they position their lighting and what they did so well. So one of the biggest things to lighting a good scene is using a backlight. I don't know if that's the proper term for it, but you have your key light, your fill light, your headlight, or I think that actually may be called a backlight, but one of the biggest things is actually seeing a light source in your scene. And it is very interesting to see something lit rather than, you know, a black area, which is something that we did not take into account in noir, but that is kind of a style thing that happens in noir. Noir means black, so it should be black. But anyway, some of the biggest things that I found very, very significant was that in the courtroom, they always had these big, big white windows, but they diffused all the light, and it looked interesting and whatnot, but I don't think that would have been too hard to have lit correctly, but it looked, well, with my lights, yes, because I don't have, you know, 20,000 watt lights. I just don't have that. But something that was really good about it, and once being seen But one thing that I thought was really, really good about it in one scene in particular, Abraham Lincoln is fighting with his wife, and there is a corner of the room where everything is completely black, and it would have made for a very boring shot. And this is so non-conscious that people do this, or that you see it, but I'd assume it was a very intentional decision by Mr. Spielberg, is that he put a small oval mirror in that corner. So what it did is it reflected light from the other side of the room, so it didn't actually like brighten up the scene any, but instead of having a boring black corner, you got to see, you know, a more interesting part of the room that was lit up and stuff, and then they had light come through the windows and all that. Another thing that I had Brayton, who is one of the cast members here in a Real Life Perspective, is was it shot in a noir style? I don't think it was shot in a noir style. There are definitely some similarities where they had extreme light on one side and less light on the other, but it definitely wasn't like that. It had a low saturation, not black and white, which is not necessary for noir, but very common. But it did have the intense light on one side and less light on the other, but it wasn't dark on the other side, which is a big thing. Also, this doesn't come up in noir, but you have a lot of light here, it's dim in the center, and then you have your fill light coming at an angle backwards and kind of lights up part of your face, but not the front latter part of your face. So that was another lighting scenario that was very common in Lincoln. And the reason being for this is because it was, you know, more historical. You didn't have the full lighting that we have now. We have electricity, so we have light bulbs everywhere to light things up, whereas they had candles, you know? Candles will offer an intense heat over here and a good light in movie world, but it won't light up the room like electricity would. So that is the big concept behind that, whereas, you know, in modern times we have more light coming from all different directions, so it lights everything up better. So that was definitely a big plus. The lighting was just absolutely fantastic. Go and watch it. The lighting itself, whoever was the lighting designer on that, I should look him up. I will put his name here. He's fantastic. He or she, fantastic. But just, beautiful. So another really cool thing is it's really, really hard to catch. It's something that I pay attention to, the really, really tiny details, is that during this scene where Lincoln was addressing his cabinet members, he was talking about what they needed to be doing to fix the problem of slavery. And so at one point, you actually see the tiniest push-pull you have ever seen in your life. When he makes just the tiniest little point and he stops talking, I've never seen a push-pull that small, which is a push-pull, if you aren't aware of what it is a zoom which will affect your depth of field but keeping your object in focus. So your background is going to change in depth of field focus, and it really makes it look like the character is really focusing on what they're saying. So, you know, popular examples of this are like Jaws, when the lifeguard sees what's going on, just zooms in on him and the background does something funky. That's a push-pull effect. I don't know really how to describe it. It gets further away yet closer. But that is a push-pull. Further, closer. So, concept behind it is it makes them look like they're really focused. So when Lincoln's making this important point and takes a pause, there is a moment about that long where a push-pull actually occurs, and it's not noticeable unless you're looking for it, but it is something that you subconsciously recognize and receive the effect from. So I thought that was also very brilliant on Mr. Spielberg's part. The only thing in the entire movie that I necessarily thought was done poorly, and I've had some people disagree with me because I was watching it with some other people. They said, I don't think that was it, or that, you know, you're the only one who would notice that. And, you know, likely enough, they're right. I am the only person who cared. But in scenes where someone's on a carriage or on a car, I always try to figure out, are they actually shooting this? You know, there's an unnatural level of stabilization, which was good that he didn't. You saw the background stayed in place where the carriage bounced up and down. So that was good because it didn't give the illusion that it was on a tripod. But at the same time, were they on a vehicle next to them? Well, that would mean that the vehicle would be dipping at the same time too. So it's more than likely green screened. So, but the difference is you could actually fix it so that it wasn't green screen by putting it on some sort of a glide cam type setup where it will, the camera will operate independently from how the vehicle moves. So that's possible. So I always look for some tiny little detail that someone has messed up just to figure out if it's green screen or if they're actually shooting it without a green screen's help. Which at one point they were going from side to side and you could clearly tell that it was on a tripod and they were filming them. But there are lots of issues with actually filming actors face on while they're on a vehicle. So the tiny detail that gave away that it was in fact green screened was at one point, if I'm sitting in the carriage here, the lighting was coming from over here and someone walked by here, maybe 30-degree angle, I don't know. But lighting was coming over from over here, and the video showed someone walk by within, I'd say, 3 or 4 feet of the carriage, and would have been tall enough to have cast some sort of a shadow over the vehicle or over their shoulder or something, and there were no shadows that were cast. And so, just the tiniest little details, which would have been really hard to replicate, and no one but me really cared, I'm sure. Maybe Danon, which is one of my director friends, would have cared, but really no one but us would have cared. But it was enough that I could see that it wasn't indeed green screen. So that's not really a complaint. It was a fantastic green screening job. I just like noticing the tiny little details like that and pointing them out to you. But anyways, that is your review of Lincoln. Very short, more on the technical side as I always am. But very good movie. A little bit longer, but go see for yourself, really. That is a very significant movie that just came out for Mr. Spielberg, as it is up for some sort of Academy Award, and very rightfully so with that brilliant lighting. But anyways, thank you for watching today's episode of Real Life Perspective by Filmmaker, and I hope to see you next week.